John and Colleen Greybill. I think I got that correct.
Yes,
Of the Curtis Legacy Foundation.
yes,
Uh,
yes.
okay, I'm super pumped for this. This is going to be covering Ute history, and this is the first extensive video I have covering history with, and particularly Indigenous America. I'm very pumped about that.
Awesome. I'm
Yeah,
glad that you're putting it out there.
yes, yes. This is something I have aggressively tried to get on the channel since starting it, and I'm finally able to start doing it now. So let us get started. John, you in particular have a family relation.
Yes, yes, I do. With Edward Curtis, he's my great grandfather. And as some people may know, if they studied some art history or whatever, Curtis worked in the late 1800s through the early 1900s to 1930, documenting and photographing the indigenous population of this continent west of the Mississippi and from the Mexico border up through Canada and into Alaska. And so about 35 years he spent doing this, and traveled the country in a horse-drawn wagon with his large format view camera and glass plates, and had quite the adventure along the way, much as we have with our journey.
Yeah, I mean that sounds it. Because back then I mean when I went to college, they made us take a couple classes where we had to work with some of that technology. Totally sucked compared to the convenience of having digital cameras and digital technology. Nowadays, you just have a little SD card, you have a camera like this big, you have a lens maybe this big, and you just have to worry about keeping it clean. And back then, there was huge problems with light exposure, with processing some of these glass slides. And it was heavy too. It was very heavy. And there was a lot of things that could go wrong when traveling in a horse-drawn or horseback.
Yeah.
That is
Sometimes a donkey.
sometimes a donkey. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because people don't think about it, but you're also maintaining and working with a live animal that too can also easily get more scared than you. Um, yeah. So, what got him started on doing this?
So Curtis moved to Washington Territory late 1800s with his dad to start the family life over. They'd had a horrible time and lost winter crop, and they were literally dirt poor. There was a story that my Uncle Hal told, Curtis's firstborn son. And old man Curtis, Johnson Curtis, was a preacher, and one of the church ministers was going to come by, and they didn't have any food to feed him when he came by. So Edward's mom says, "You still got that pet turtle down in the pond?" Edward says, "Yes." She says, "Well, go get that. I'm going to cook that up for your dad and the preacher, and the rest of you can have potato soup." And so Ed goes down to the pond and gets this turtle and brings it back, and his mom cooks it up, and that was the meal for the day. But at any rate, after they moved to Washington Territory, they're out in Sydney, Washington, which is now Port Orchard, and they build a log cabin by hand. They've got a plot of land, about 150 acres. They've got fruit trees, and they get it all set up for the rest of the family to come. They send word for them to come down. Family arrives. Old man Curtis dies 3 days later of pneumonia. And so Curtis and his brother Ashel have to support the family. And they're doing all kinds of odd jobs, one of which was working for a logging company. And Edward takes a bad fall and injures his back. And so he's laid up in bed for almost a year recuperating from this. And when he finally gets back on his feet, he realizes he can't do physical labor anymore. He's got to do something else. So he leans back on a photography apprenticeship he did in St. Paul a few years back and buys into a portrait studio in Seattle. And that starts his portrait career. He works in a couple different studios before it takes on just his name. And he becomes like the place to go to get your portrait done. You know, if you're in the Seattle area or any place else and you want your portrait done, this is where you go. And so he's just got a ton of portrait business. And my grandmother Florence writes in her book that he got bored with it. And so he starts venturing out. And his first ventures were onto Mount Rainier. And so he'd pack his 18 by 22 inch view camera up to the mountain and take photos and scenic landscape, glaciers, all this kind of stuff. And becomes quite the mountaineering expert. But he also ventures down into the Seattle shoreline. And he sees natives out there digging clams, mussels, this kind of stuff, and starts taking pictures of them. And eventually he asks this lady by the name of Princess Angeline if she'd come up to the studio and sit for a portrait. And he's going to pay her $1. He gives her $1 coin. Well, you know, she's living a subsistence life out on the shores of Seattle and thinks that that's great. That's far better than digging clams or doing laundry for the dominant society. And so this is his first Native American portrait, Princess Angeline, about 1895. Princess Angeline is the daughter of Chief Seattle, who the city was named after. And so he gets this bug and he starts photographing natives all across the country. And one thing leads to another. He gets financing from JP Morgan.
Let me help you out there, honey.
And gets backed at least verbally by President Roosevelt. And has a couple other trips that kind of set some things in motion. One was with Byrd Grinnell on the Harriman expedition up to Alaska in 1899. And that really starts to solidify what the project's going to look like. And he's often running with this for basically the rest of his working career. This is what he did. And sets out to photograph and document Native Americans, every aspect of their life to the best that he can. Their religion, their social interaction, their government, their clothing, their food, everything. And then takes photos along the way to support the text. So he ends up producing 20 volumes of these documents that he writes and produces. And that was his career. That's kind of how he got started, and in a nutshell, real encapsulated what he did.
Very cool. Now, are these volumes that he's written, are these published anywhere? Are people able to read them?
They are. He had planned on publishing 500 sets, but the project ended right at 1930. We're in the Great Depression, so he only sells like 272 sets and doesn't get subscriptions for anymore. So that's where it ended. Those that were published, a lot of them you can find in museums and libraries. We have what we call the Curtis Census on our website that lists out the known sets we were able to locate, and whether it's a private set or it's a public library or museum, if people are interested in looking at them.
At the original.
The originals.
But there are reproductions on the internet that you can purchase.
Yeah, Northwestern University's digitized the complete set, so people can read them online. You can download the pictures. It's all public domain at this point.
Now, did you ever talk with your great grandfather?
No, he passed in 52.
Mhm.
and I wasn't born until 57, so I missed out on that, sadly. But my grandparents, my grandma Florence, his third born, and my uncle Hal, I spent a fair amount of time with those two.
And how did they describe him?
They loved their father, which a lot of people don't get, because his wife ends up divorcing him. She files for divorce in 1916 because he's never home. He's out in the field chasing Indians, right? And in the meantime, she's trying to run the studio for him, and she's got bill collectors pounding on the door. He's mortgaged like everything they own, trying to keep the project afloat. And so, yeah, the kids didn't really care for their mother, but they adored their father, even though he was out in the field working most of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, what have you guys been? Have you been in touch with the people that, or the descendants? And I don't think the people that he photographed are still alive, but the descendants.
Actually, Garrett, we did find one person that he photographed that was still alive, and was in his last trip to Alaska in 1927. And it was Anna Ellis, and she was 3 years old when he photographed her. And we hooked up with her when 2019, we worked with her.
I have John here. Here. Here you go. Hi. Mom,
Hi,
this is John
Anna.
Greybill.
Okay.
Who are you?
John Greybill.
Well, I'm glad to meet you.
The pleasure's all mine. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Are you a great
Great
child of Edward?
Yes, great grandson. Yes.
Well, I was
And you
only,
met him.
no, I was only a child, only around something like that, 4 years old, and so I just remember little bits and pieces of him.
Oh, awesome. Well, we're going to talk about him and
Wow.
you today.
I want to see you in the daylight. See if I want to see if you remind me of him.
Well, I'm brown eyes, he was blue, but otherwise, some people say they see a resemblance. I don't know.
They do.
That's what
I
they tell
bet
me.
they do. Then, oh, that's great. And who's that?
This is my wife, Coleen.
Hi, Coleen. Nice to meet you.
This is truly an honor to meet you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Well, I'm way old. I'm 94.
94.
Yeah. I was born in 1924. Well, July 26, 1924.
Wow.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
That's a few years ago.
Yeah, 94 years ago.
January of 2019.
She was 94 years old.
94.
Oh my
So we got to interview her and photograph her, and just for your audience's pleasure, I also use a large format camera with glass plates and hand process here at home, and so I go through all that. Yes.
That's awesome. That is awesome that you're still doing that.
Yeah, well, we tried to capture it digitally, and we're both members of PPA, or Professional Photographers of America. Colleen's like super gifted at Photoshop, and we tried all kinds of lens combinations and different processing techniques, and we just couldn't recreate or emulate that feel of these old-time photos. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we decided to go back to large format and shoot that way, and then we get what we're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. Nothing, as much as I enjoy the convenience of digital technology, I don't think it's ever going to capture the way that the old technology ever will. I don't think you could ever successfully recreate 35 millimeter Super 16 or any of these metal tins or glass plates. You'll probably never do it.
Mhm.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's such a softness, but still sharp, but a softness to it. And it just looks so
Yeah.
much,
Lifelike.
yeah. Yeah, it looks more real than how digital makes things look.
Oh, definitely.
But getting back to your original question about do we meet any descendants, that's part of our descendants project. And Coleen seeks out descendants of the people that Curtis photographed. And when we were starting out, our friends were saying, you guys are crazy. That's going to be so hard. You'll never get anywhere. All the naysayers. But Coleen found it kind of easy, and she's located a ton of descendants. And so we go out and we interview them and shoot it on video. So I've got video and audio that we'll use in other parts of the project. And then we have a portrait session where I'm using the large format black and white film, and away we go.
Mhm.
And it's been awe-inspiring to meet these people. It's just incredible.
Yeah. So what was it like when you got to interview this one woman who physically...
Anna Ellis. Yeah. I don't get, I had goosebumps, because I introduced myself and I'm sitting there talking to her, and I realized my great grandfather worked with this person. And here I am doing the same thing. It was just mind blowing. And so.
And she remembered Curtis coming. She remembered because he looked so different.
Yeah.
He was tall and blue eyes and more blonde hair, which is not normal in Alaska Native cultures. And he was dressed very different. And so she remembered him, and she remembered that she wasn't happy about having to sit for the photograph. And so that's why she said she looks grumpy in the photograph.
Sourpuss face on.
She wanted to go out and play, and so she remembered having the photographs taken.
Yeah.
That was very cool. And she lived to 99. She just passed away a year ago, and she was just adorable. Absolutely adorable.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. That's incredible though. I mean, to actually have interacted with somebody that
Mhm.
that historical connection is just mind blowing.
Mhm.
So when you're sitting down and you're talking with some of these people who have a relationship, all these photographs taken like 100 years ago, what are, I mean, like what's it like for it when two generations come face to face and talk about a previous generation?
You want to take that one? You have some thoughts to share?
It's really special, especially if they haven't seen the image before. We've had several people that we've shown unpublished work that we have that we just published. We were up in Montana, and we were doing a book signing for our Edward S. Curtis Unpublished Plains, which is 200 images that Curtis or other authors have never published. One partially because a lot of them were in the personal family collection that no one had ever seen, or things that haven't been digitized before that were at the Library of Congress. And so we published those images, and as we're showing them, we're finding descendants of those people that have never seen that image. And it's really, really touching for them. And we we had one gentleman that had told me who his ancestor was. And I said, wait a minute, let me go grab the book. I want to show you a picture. You may have never seen it before. And so I showed it to him, and he was just in awe because his ancestor had on a badge and it said Indian sheriff on it.
Judge.
Or Indian judge. And he said, I'm a judge now. And I thought I was the first in my family to ever be a judge. And he said, now I know I'm not. He said, wow, that really touches me. It brings a tear to my eye. And he was, yeah, he was really in awe that he got to see that image. And we've had others the same kind of situation. So it's really special to be able to show them those photographs. And it seems that Native Americans are so much more in touch with their ancestry than white Americans. You know, I know who my grandparents are, and somebody's your great grandparents, but if you showed me a picture, I'd be like, oh, cool. But it wouldn't have that deep connection that Native Americans seem to have with their ancestors. And it's an honor for us to be able to share those images and to give those images to them.
We have a great story on our blog written by Shawnee Realbird, who showed the unpublished Plains book to her grandfather. And the experience he went through seeing relatives that he had never seen their pictures. He knew the names, but hadn't seen the pictures before. It's a heartwarming story. And so if people want more, head out to our blog and have a read. It's really good.
Yeah. Also, I'm curious as well, while you guys are going through these old stories, these books, and some of these photographs, for what some people might not know was, we're getting at, like, this was kind of one of the worst. This is probably one of the darkest periods in American culture, or not American culture, American history, where tribes are being forced out of their homelands, forced onto reservations. And then this is when the US government very kindly went ahead and started doing things like making these requirements for people to keep to be an official tribe. These laws, like they have to have a language, while at the same time their language is being made illegal. All these other wonderful things too. And so are you seeing through these pictures like resilience, adaptivity, a group of people very capable of overcoming through these struggling times?
Absolutely. They are a very resilient people. They're still here. And many of them have retained their language. They've retained their ancestral ways. You know, they still practice the sun dance, sweats, other sacred ceremonies that Curtis documented still happen. And it's really heartwarming, given all that they've been through, that our government put them through, that they're still able to function to this capacity. It's very heartwarming.
And it's really exciting to see that more schools are, especially on Native lands or near highly populated near Native areas, that they're teaching the languages in the schools. They're doing more and more of Native American history, and they're teaching different dances in the gym classes. You know, so they're really bringing the cultures back to the youth in the education system in those areas. And that's really exciting because that's where it has to start.
There's another example, if you don't mind me sharing, out on Pine Ridge in South Dakota. There's the reservation, the Pine Ridge Reservation out there. We met Henry Red Cloud back in 2019, descendant of Red Cloud, direct descendant. And you know, the Lakota for millennia, they faced the opening to the teepee to the east. They pray to the sun and give thanks to what the sun provides for them all day long. This is their life, a life of giving thanks for what the Creator's given to them. And so we meet Henry out here in Pine Ridge, and sure enough, he's taken some ancestral ways into the 21st century, and is what he calls a solar warrior, the new way to honor the old way. And so he's developed a solar training program and brings natives from all across the country into his facility, certifies them in solar energy, and they can go back to their tribes and install solar. And it's really heartwarming to see this, still maintaining their ancestral way, but in the 21st century. It's really cool. And
are they building houses that will face east?
they do develop this foamcrete structure. And so they build this round dome, kind of symbolic of a teepee, if you will. And they pump a bladder full of foamcrete. So, you know, the walls are like monster thick, super insulated, which is what they need out there. Very efficient, takes little energy to run them. The doors all face east. And they're providing housing for their people out there on Pine Ridge with these. It's wonderful to see what Henry's doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really encouraging.
That's awesome.
We just need to get out of their way and let them be. You know, do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would be the best way if people wanted to either support you guys or keep up to date or see what it is that you're doing?
Well, they can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, or, you know, and I think we've got a Pinterest account now, and I think we might be on LinkedIn. We are, but so we've got those social media channels, but probably the best way is go to our website, which is curtislegacyfoundation.org, and they can sign up for our newsletter there, and we send out 1 or 2 emails a month about what we've been doing, what's coming up, some other news items, and they can stay in touch with us that way. If they want to help support the foundation, we accept donations through the website, or they can mail us a check. That works too. Or they can buy our books. The books are fundraisers to help keep the foundation going. Oh, and by the way, I have to mention, as far as the books go, when we receive funds, a portion of those funds go to donate those books to the tribal libraries and museums that they represent. So the Alaska book, we've donated over 100 books up to Alaska. The Plains book, which is newer, we haven't hit 100 yet, but we're getting somewhat close. And so all this help from our supporters helps fund that project. And getting these books back into the hands of natives so they can see their ancestors is very special and important to us, important to them too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we go?
Yeah, we appreciate you finding us and giving us that time to share what we're doing, and yeah, just helping us get the word out that our Native American friends are on their way back and becoming strong and healthy again.
Awesome. All
Yeah.
right. Any message for future generations?
Well, actually,
Short, honey.
short, yeah. So we are working on plans in the foundation to have this Descendants project continue maybe another 4 or 5 generations from now and revisit this. So there would be these segments going forward through time, connecting all of this to the past. We're pretty excited about that. That's kind of a fun thing. So stay tuned. There's more to come.
Stay tuned. More to come.
Yes.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Garrett.